Welcome to the next part, Part 3. Just a quick summary of what we looked at in our previous two videos. We looked at the chronological order from Adam to Seth in Part 1, and from Seth to Egypt in Part 2. Let us now dive deep into Part 3, and see what we can cover, as we are heading towards the time Jesus was born. According to the book of 1 Kings, Chapter 6 verse 1. From the time the Israelites came out of the land of Egypt until the time King Solomon began to build the house of the Lord. In the 4th year of his reign over Israel, there passed 480 years. With that knowledge, let us now do some analysis of the 480 years as follows. In Deuteronomy 1 verse 3, according to the Bible, Moses led the Israelites for 40 years, as they wandered the wilderness before entering the promised land after his death. How long did Joshua lead the Israelites? In Deuteronomy 1 verse 1 to 11, here, the Bible tells us how Joshua became the successor of Moses. The Bible does not tell us the exact time Joshua led Israelites. It is us then to determine using the same Bible. At the end of the video, I'm going to show you exactly how I found that Joshua led Israelites for 14 years. Cushan-Rishathaim. Cushan was the king of Aram-Naharaim or northwest Mesopotamia, and the first oppressor of the Israelites after their settlement in Canaan. According to the book of Judges chapter 3 verse 8, God delivered the Israelites to him for 8 years as a punishment for polytheism. Othniel was the first judge. This was when the Israelites came into the arms of judges. He was a member of the tribe of Caleb. He delivered the young Israelites from 8 years of oppression by Cushan-Rishathaim, king of Mesopotamia. Othniel judged or ruled Israel for 40 years. We come to Eglin. According to the book of Judges, Eglin was the king of Moab who oppressed Israel. King Eglin of Moab ruled over the Israelites for 18 years. The Israelites cried to the Lord for help, so he sent a man named Ehud, son of Jerah, to save them. Ehud is described in the Bible as a judge who was sent by God to deliver the Israelites from Moabite domination. Ehud rules Israel in peace for 80 years. When Ehud was dead, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, so the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan. Then the children of Israel cried out to the Lord, and for 20 years, Jabin harshly oppressed the children of Israel. We come to Deborah. The biblical battle of Mount Tabor took place during the time of the Judges. It was between the forces of King Jabin of Canaan, who ruled from Hazor, and the Israelites' army, led by Barak and Deborah. After Jabin and his army were defeated, Deborah judged the Israelites for 40 years. Midian, Judges 6 verse 1, after Deborah came the Midian. The children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of Midian for 7 years. Judges 8 verse 28, the Bible says, thus was Midian subdued before the children of Israel, so that they lifted up their heads no more, and the country was in quietness for 40 years in days of Gideon. Abimelech was the king of Shechem and a son of Gideon. He inherited right to rule. He ruled for 3 years before a conspiracy arose against him. Tola, in this chapter the Bible says, and after Abimelech came Tola, the son of Puah, and he judged Israel for 23 years and died, and buried in Shamir. Jair, according to Judges 2 verse 3, the Bible says that after Tola arose Jair, a Gileadite, and judged Israel 22 years. We come to Philistines and Ammon. After the death of Jair, the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and the anger of the Lord was hot against Israel, and he sold them into the hands of the Philistines and into the hands of children of Ammon. The Israelites were then oppressed for 18 years by the Philistines and Ammonites. From there, we come to Jephthah. Jephthah led the Israelites in battle against the Ammonites. He was the judge who presided over Israel for a period of 6 years. Ibzan, according to Judges 12 verse 8, the Bible says, and after the death of Jephthah, Ibzan of Bethlehem judged Israel for 7 years. Elon, Judges 12 verse 11, and after Ibzan, Elon, a Zebulunite, judged Israel for 10 years. Abdon, Judges 12 verse 13 to 14, and after Eglin, Abdon the son of Hillel, judged Israel for 8 years. Samson, Judges 16 verse 31, after Abdon, Samson was the next judge of Israel, he judged the Israelites for 20 years. We come then to Samuel. The prophet Samuel was the last judge of Israel, and the Bible say, Samuel judged Israel all days of his life. It does not tell us exactly how many years he had ruled Israel. But that doesn't mean we cannot find out. Let us then determine. After the death of Abdon in Judges 12 verse 15, we know that the next judge was Samson, who judged Israel for 20 years as we have found. But before that, after the death of Abdon, according to Judges 13 verse 1, it reads, "And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered to Philistines 40 years. So after Abdon, the time the Lord delivered them to Philistines was the same time Samson started judging Israel, not until David defeated them, which marked the end of their reign over Israel." We conclude that from Samson to David, there are 40 years in between. So then who ruled Israel during the period of Philistines? They had their leaders, and there were Samson, Samuel, Saul, and Ishbosheth. We know that Saul ruled the Israelites for 2 years. Let us then find out how long did Ishbosheth reign over Israel. When you read carefully, you will find the period which Ishbosheth ruled over Israel, which was 7.5 years. With this knowledge, we can easily determine the years which Samuel ruled. Quick mathematics. Samson plus Samuel plus Saul plus Ishbosheth equals Philistines. This gives 20 plus Samuel plus 2 plus 8 equals 40. For Ishbosheth, we used 8 years because it was from 7th to 8th year when David succeeded him. Hence in conclusion, we find out that Samuel ruled Israelites for 10 years. From there, we go to David. David in Hebron reigned 7.5 years, which was concluded to be for the same period Ishbosheth reigned in Israel, since it was the end of the 7th year, when Ishbosheth stopped ruling Israel, and we know that David ruled for 40 years, hence David ruled in Israel for 32 years, and before his full 33-year reached, he was no longer a king. We come to Solomon, 1 Kings 6 verse 1, the Bible reads, "And it came to pass in the 408th year, after the children of Israel came out of the land of Egypt, in the 4th year of Solomon's reign over Israel, in the month of Ziph, which is the 2nd month, that he began to build the house of the Lord." So the years of reign of Solomon we count here are those 4 years, since those are years when he began to build the Lord's house. I promised you that at the end of the video, I will show you how to determine the years which Joshua led the Israelites. Since we have years of all the rulers of Israel during the period of 480 years, we can easily determine Joshua's years of ruling, just by adding all years for all rulers minus 480 years, which gives 14 years. When you add all these years, they surely give you 480 years.